Well, this is awkward. With the Pylea arc, we now get into dicey territory, my friends. Well, for me. The stretch from belonging to There's No Place Like Plrtz Glrb contains some of the most fandom quoted and referenced material from the whole show. It's a bubbly and joyful bit of camp fun after an extremely dark season, and I don't really care for it.
What?
Am I a sourpuss Eeyore who loves a good cry? Yeah, and you're choosing to watch my video series, so buckle up, baby. The specifics as to why Pylea doesn't do it for me are the content of this video, but I hate making videos like this. This is the kind of content that gets comments calling me a slut-shaming misogynist or a woke college-indoctrinated soy boy cuck. Incidentally, if those two groups could get together to hash out which one of those is correct, that would be great, as I'm still not sure what honorific I should be writing in my underpants. As much as I feel like there's a certain amount of due diligence that goes with the episode guide part of this YouTube series, spending 4 videos yucking everyone's Pylean yum doesn't sound like a lot of fun for me to make, let alone for anyone to watch. So, as per usual in these cases, if you love Pylea, why don't you go ahead and skip this one and come back for Heartthrob? Unless you're a fan of Heartthrob, then maybe wait until that vision thing. For everyone else still here, we're doing one video to cover the arc, and I brought on Josh to co-write it with me because he actually likes Pylea. You like the Pylea arc, right, Josh?
I'm sorry?
Oh, crap.
The greater scheme, the big picture. Nothing to do with
There's a lot worse things out there.
Still doesn't work in spite of
Belonging starts strong, setting up all the character arcs for the run. I love the title, as the theme of belonging is to Angel what the concept of choice is to Buffy. Cordy dreams of being an actress and isn't sure if she would be a part of the team were it not for the visions.
I hate my whole life.
Wes isn't sure if he belongs as leader, and occasionally Angel steps on his toes. Gunn is torn between his role with the Lost Boys and Angel investigations. The only person who seems to have any sense of where they belong is Lorne. It's good setup. And the episode opens with a cute scene in which the gang is having a team dinner celebrating Cordy having gotten an acting gig. The very first shot of the episode is kinda genius. Initially, we don't realize the whole gang is around the table until Angel starts talking and the camera does a full pan to reveal that he was sitting at the table the entire time. Since the Pylea arc is essentially a coda for the season, the camera pan and reveal functions to echo this season's Tish Magev mirror motifs.
You're reflected in the people around you.
Along with visualizing for us that Angel's journey this season has brought him back where he's supposed to be. For the most part, it's a cute scene. I love the inclusion of fussy Angel complaining about the cost of things.
I'm not cheap, I'm just old.
Angel not being able to unwind and suspiciously attacking the rich woman for her shawl is a nice callback to Raised Darla from the season. But the most important reveal of the opening scene might just be that the Cordy hair crisis, which began the season, has come to an end.
What happened to your head?
Excuse me?
My God, she looks amazing. All really great. Until the Vision vomit bait and switch joke, with Cordy throwing up the sashimi. Given part of Cordy's arc in this 4-parter is romantic, it evokes that weird habit of romantic comedies, including a scene where the lead actress is humiliated.
You're really doing it, aren't you?
After the cold open, we are reminded of Wes's father's ongoing disappointment in him that was first brought up in I've Got You Under My Skin. Alexis's performance is pretty wonderful, as Wyndham Price Sr. celebrates the news of his son's promotion by reminding him that he was once fired from the Watchers Council. Again, the camera move here is pretty great, as Wesley begins the scene in full frame, but by the end of his father's humiliation, he is now shrunken and diminished in the middle of the shot. Angel goes to get some vision clarification from Cordelia on the set of her commercial, and I love the shot of him enjoying a moment of fantasy under the fake sunlight. The music here is wonderful. He then witnesses Cordy being objectified and humiliated by a director before she kicks him off set for coming to her defense without asking. Gunn's loyalties are tested when his job at Angel Investigations conflicts with helping his old team defend the neighborhood. Later in the episode, a member of the Lost Boys is killed and they burn mannequin of him? Angel rants about Cordy's treatment, foreshadowing her arc in the coming episodes.
It's like she's his commodity, like she's a slave or something.
At Caritas, a portal opens while the resident Team Oracle sings Superstition by Stevie Wonder. Lorne enlists the team to go after the demon that he seems to know a suspicious amount about.
Are you gonna help me, or do I have to break out my champion Rolodex?
Cordy gets a vision of a woman named Winifred Burkle, disappearing, though it turns out to be something that happened a long time ago at the library.
The library?
This episode, again, playing this season's, hits. The team finds a book, mutterings from which open a portal and bring Lorne's cousin Landok to this world. They all go a-draken hunting through a nice, moody palette set, and the episode ends with their attempt to send Landok home, accidentally taking Cordy along with him.
Oh, crap.
Well, you came and you gave without taking.
The Green One's journey home in this arc might be the ideal time to acknowledge something. Buffy gets a lot of fanfare for having, well, maybe the greatest musical episode of all time, as it should. But in almost every other way, music is a far more significant and meaningful part of the Angel universe, including the fact that as of Season 2, the show's resident oracle tells you your future by listening to you sing. Music, playing at the Bronze in Sunnydale, often reflected things happening in the episode, but because of Lorne's abilities, the songs in Angel foreshadow things yet to come. In his first appearance this arc, Lorne is singing Superstitious by Stevie Wonder, but makes a slight yet significant for later seasons modification to the original lyrics.
The devil's on his way. Oh, got a 13-month-old baby.
As the story goes, Whedon conceived of Lorne when he saw Andy Hallett performing in a karaoke bar. And according to David Greenwalt, quote, "We interviewed Andy because he was who the character was based on, and he was the best of anybody who read for it. Lovable as Lorne is, the show is never content to use his powers purely as a source of humor, though there is that."
Yo, Mandy. Well, you came and you gave without taking.
But even there, as we talked about in that episode, the use of Manilow has subtext, along with the chance to see sides of Angel's character we don't often get to.
Why Mandy? I kind of think it's pretty.
Music is a tool in the show for character and even plot developments. One of the ongoing Angel bits I never get tired of is when Lorne happens to pick up on a piece of information he wasn't supposed to through song. A handful of those moments are game-changing.
You make me happy.
Music is the heart's native language, and the use of it on Angel works as an incredible way of giving us immediate access to the souls of these characters. If you'd like to get really nerdy with the music, there's a wonderful essay by Matthew Mills in the book Reading Angel called Ubi Caritas, Music as a Narrative Agent in Angel, that I recommend. There's also an entire tome dedicated to the topic called Buffy, Ballads, and Bad Guys Who Sing, links down below.
How'd you get here? I'm pretty sure I was sucked in by a portal.
Over the Rainbow picks up Cordy and Pylea trying to figure out how to get home. She is attacked and captured by one of those demons from the prom.
If I'm not mistaken, this is a hellhound.
Turns out Pylea's hellhounds are sweet. I love this heel click. Its owner turns Cordy into a slave. Ignoring Wes's objections, Angel tries to reopen the portal, but turns out the portal's batteries are dead. Wes figures out they need to go through the portal in some kind of container so they don't get separated. Gunn says he isn't going because he can't risk this being a one-way trip and not being able to defend his team. Lorne agrees. Back in Pylea, Cordy is sold at the market and collared. As she begrudgingly follows her owner, mumbling to herself, the camera pans over, and this is how we meet Winifred Burkle.
Can I say something about destiny? Screw destiny. So I survived an unspeakable hell dimension. Who hasn't? Because destiny is just another word for inevitable. You make me happy. And nothing's inevitable. Why can I stay?
A friend convinces Lorne to go to Pylea. There's a Wolfram and Hart lawyer on the loose, and it's Jin. Daniel,
I'm sorry.
Fred and Cordy meet, and 5 years in Pylea has not done well for Fred's mental health. Fred gets captured, Cordy has a vision, and in a tonally dissonant sequence for how grim it is in this fluffy arc, Cordy is tortured by priests to establish if she has the visions. Angel leaves a recorded message. We're probably left to believe it's for Buffy, but it was Gunn, who shows up at the last minute to go through the portal with them. They go through, but the Book of Portaling does not. In Pylea, the boys discover things work a little bit differently.
Why am I not on fire?
Everyone is captured, and in their escape attempt, discover...
Hi, guys.
I'm a fraud. The council was right to sack me.
One of the most frequent references in the Pylea arc is to the 1939 film The Wizard of Oz, from at least two of the episode titles being direct quotes from the film to many of the visuals having undeniable parody. Team Angel's Pylean adventure was clearly modeled on Dorothy's journey into Oz, if as a dark inversion of it. Oz begins when a young woman is dreaming of a life where she doesn't have to worry about responsibilities or consequences and is whisked away through a cyclonic vortex to a magical land ruled by a distant distant, largely unseen, and revered to the point of fear wizard. In her quest to return home, she is aided by companions, all of whom need something for themselves: courage, brains, and a heart. Eventually, they discover the things they wanted were within them all along, including a way home. Okay, so not all the characters map seamlessly here. Fred's closest Oz analog might be Glinda the Good Witch, as she is Cordy's initial Pylean tour guide and is ultimately the one who gets Team Angel back home. But Fred is also a darker telling of the Dorothy tale, an innocent girl lost in a strange and antagonistic world, left with the responsibility of helping a bunch of dudes wrestle with their inner children while also being the princess who saves herself. Fred helps Angel see his better self, figures out how to lure him away from Wesley and Gunn rather than trying to fight, and collaborates with him to fight the Gruselug, essentially solving all of his problems for him so she can catch a ride home. Unlike the wizard, however, Angel does get her home successfully, so there's that. Being the first companion Dorothy encounters in her travels, Wesley as the Scarecrow might not seem immediately obvious. After all, the Scarecrow wanted a brain, and Wesley is one of the smartest characters on either show, right? But if we look closely at Dorothy's Scarecrow, we see that no one actually tells the Scarecrow he isn't smart. He is the only one that thinks he isn't. Likewise, we've seen plenty of evidence to this point of Wesley's intelligence and competence, if not his wisdom. What is actually significant is Wesley's lack of faith in himself. Guys Will Be Guys spent the most time on the topic, where Wesley masterminds a spur-of-the-moment scheme to save Cordy from that episode's hired muscle and protect Virginia from forces within and without. And when both Virginia and Cordy point out his competence, no one is more surprised than Wesley. Wesley makes many efforts to assert his competence in Are You Now or Have You Ever Been, The Trial, and Reunion, only to have them all undermined by Angel's determination to go off all top that. Angel, a man Wesley respects and admires, continuously running over him probably echoes his relationship with his father. This season he was promoted to leader, but after speaking with his father, Wesley's loop of self-doubt continues. Once in Pylea, Wesley gradually reasserts himself until the point that he and Gunn are captives of the local rebel alliance. There, Wesley's brilliance finally shows through his tactically sound plan of attack on the castle. But here we also see the consequences of the abuse Wesley has suffered. As with his plan to test the origin of Bethany's powers in Untouched, Wesley has come to the conclusion that in order to be the good, assertive leader, he must be hard, he must be cold, he must be willing to do the things that others are not.
The guys you send to create those diversions are gonna die.
You try not to get anybody killed, you wind up getting everybody killed.
In addition to his plan with the rebels, he also emotionally manipulates Angel so that Angel will fight the Gruselug.
You really think he'll come back?
I need him to think it.
All without consulting anyone. It's an arc, of sorts, but the journey from Caesar's confidence becoming his tragic flaw of hubris is shorter than Caesar may have realized. When the Scarecrow finally meets the wizard after being the one to mastermind Dorothy's rescue from the Wicked Witch's castle, the wizard tells him that he has just as much brains as any of the men that he has met in academia. He only lacks a diploma, or institutional validation of something he already had inside all along.
That's all what I really am. I can't go back. Not now, I can never go back.
Dorothy's next encounter is with a Tin Man, frozen in place for a long time. Once she and the Scarecrow lubricate his joints, allowing him to finally move, she expresses how wonderful it must be to be so tough and invulnerable.
Are you still...
The parallels to an immortal and emotionally stunted vampire are loose, but there. And then, of course, there's...
You have a heart. It isn't even beating.
Though I think we can read heart in this instance as Angel's humanity. While most of the season so far has dealt with Angel's existential crisis, resolved in his absurdist epiphany during the courtyard conversation with Kate, the other conflict for Angel this season has been the nature of his own duality. Pylea is the opportunity for Angel to experience the clarity of the binary morality he has said he missed.
Sometimes I miss that clarity.
This season has continuously placed Angel in situations where the solution to the problem of any given episode was unlikely to be so clear. From the Demon Protector he accidentally killed in Judgment, to the complexity of his confrontation with Darla in Dear Boy. Souled humans like Darla are supposed to be the good ones, yet she is torturing a vampire via his own monstrous nature throughout the episode. Angel has been struggling to define where the human ends and the demon begins, a struggle he reveals to the team in this arc.
Darkness was coming out of me. I didn't want you near it.
Angel's duality took a backseat arc-wise to his existential crisis, but it was the fuel for Top That Jerky Angel. His fall from leaning more into the monster than the man in order to rush the Shanshu prophecy and win against Wolfram and Hart. Angel's adventure in Pylea finally pays off the mirror motif that has been present since the first scene of the season. In the addition to the opening scene of this arc, the first time Angel sees his reflection in Pylea, the entire team is visible in the mirror with him, both reassuring him of his own nature and validating the fear that without them, he is only the monster. The Tin Woodsman tells Dorothy and the Scarecrow that he was rusted in place during an unexpected rainstorm. Likewise, Angel is more vulnerable to the environment in Pylea than on Earth, as when he tries to vamp out, but instead the demon completely consumes him. Angel's recovery from that transformation plays like a recovering alcoholic waking up the morning after a binge, and pays off the relapse metaphor that has pervaded the season. The most significant moment for him comes when he crosses back to the same pool and finally sees his reflection in its purest form. The rest of the team isn't there, and the vampire can't be seen. Only his human face is looking back at him. While it's true that we are often reflected in the people around us, from an existentialist perspective, authentic identity comes from within, expressed through the choices we make as individuals. Before this, every single time Angel looked into a mirror, he always saw irrefutable evidence of his own monstrosity through the absence of his humanity in the reflection. Throughout The Wizard of Oz, the Tin Woodsman has been the most emotional of the bunch, bursting into tears at the slightest provocation. His new friends rallied around him throughout, pushing him onwards and saving him from rusting himself again. In the end, the wizard told the Tin Woodsman something very familiar, something Angel has already been told at least once this season, and shown over and over.
And remember, my sentimental friend, that a heart is not judged by how much you love, but by how much you are loved by others.
But that's only part of the truth, and whatever his reasons for saying it, Wesley gives Angel the gift of the missing piece when he tells him,
We know you're a man with a demon inside, not the other way around.
And at last, during his final ritualistic battle with the Gruselug, Angel proves it to himself, finally embraces the gray when he rejects the binary choice the combat puts in front of him and chooses a third option.
We're not gonna do this. We're gonna find another way. And I grew strong, and I learned how to get along.
Before we get into this, there are some things to define. Broadly, scholars have observed a few stages marginalized groups progress through in their representation in media. For the purposes of this discussion, I'm going to use the staged structure first defined by Cedric Clarke in 1969. Stage 1 is symbolic annihilation, a term defined by George Gerbner in 1976, as in being absent or severely underrepresented, essentially invisible in popular media narratives. This is your Leave It to Beaver or Hays Code Hollywood era. Stage 2 is stereotypical representation, showing up in media as characters with exaggerated traits like the sassy best friend. These representations exist to be laughed at, feared, or pitied, not to be real people, taking a small part of an identity and blowing it up so big that it becomes the only thing about them, reinforcing cultural assumptions about that group as a whole. Stage 3 is tokenism, characters included to give the appearance of diversity, but their roles still lean on stereotypes, lack depth, or serve to mainly support the main characters. And stage 4 is complex representation, marginalized individuals as fully realized characters with their own stories that don't limit their status to other. This is a broad framework for understanding how cultural media evolves over time. It is not a critique of the individual creators working within it. The people making media at any given window are themselves shaped by the culture they live in, just as much as the media they create contributes to shaping the culture in return. Angel is, at this point, a fascinating cultural artifact when it comes to representation of marginalized groups, very of its time. And I think Mutant Enemy were doing incredible work. It isn't the job of any particular piece of media to solve the issues of its culture, but by nature of its deep focus on theme, Angel was a show that wasn't afraid, successfully or unsuccessfully, to engage with cultural issues. Think race and police violence in The Thin Dead Line, abuse in I Fall to Pieces and Untouched. It's great work, but stories that include marginalized groups in Angel, while sometimes complex and of the Stage 4 variety, still from time to time leave their characters in Stage 2 or Stage 3. We'll talk about Gunn later on, but his arc here, mostly having him as an audience for Wesley to be able to explain what Wesley is going through, ends by having Gunn explain how slavery works to a room full of white people, which is pure tokenism cringe. Cordy has a moment in this arc where she begs with much exhaustion for the team to find a dimension where she won't be impregnated by a demon.
Is that just too much to ask?
Mystical pregnancy stories fall somewhere between Stage 2 and 3 of the latter, as they reduce female characters to their reproductive capabilities, take away their agency, and the stories are usually used as plot devices to make the heroic dude bros look heroic. But this kind of thing is not all bias and unfinished progress, and the second thing I wanted to define here was the term queer coding. Queer coding is defined as the act of implying that a fictional character is LGBTQ+, through deliberate subtext or the use of stereotypes without confirming this directly. And as much as it can foster harmful associations when used to associate queerness and villainy,
I'm surrounded by idiots.
Life's full of tough choices, isn't it?
It can also be used by creators to get around censorship or performative moral outrage, imbuing characters with mannerisms, interests, or appearances associated with queerness and enabling subtle representation. Think Eliza playing up Faith's relationship with Buffy, or, long before their kiss in the body, that time Tara and Willow got all sweaty and horizontal casting a spell in Buffy Season 4. You know, the giant O for orgasm. O is for orgasm. But the shiny, camptastic king of the coding has to be none other than Krevlorn Swath of the Deathwalk clan himself, Lorne. And in the book Slayers and Vampires, Tim Minear said, quote, "We never said specifically that Lorne was gay, but that was definitely the way we wrote him." Andy Hallett has said that Lorne was pan-romantic, as he flirted and had romantic terms of endearment for both men and women in his life, especially Angel. And of course, when Hallett finally got added to the opening credits, which feature a telling background for each character, Lorne's is pink, with what looks like alchemy symbols scrolling in the background. I bring this up because, through that lens, the Pylea arc can be read as Lorne's coming out story, and music as the metaphor for his queerness.
All my life I thought I was crazy, that I had ghosts in my head or something, simply because I could hear music. And of course I didn't know it was music. All I knew was that it was something beautiful and painful and right. And I was the only one who could hear it.
Pylea is loaded with lots of binary heteronormative distinctions. Binary sons, a culture so masculine that his mother has a beard, a world so binary that Angel's integration of demon and human gets broken down, pushing his two halves to distinct extremes. Lorne grew up feeling he didn't belong in his binary, conventionally masculine world. His family is devoutly traditional and ritualistic. Lorne could hear music in his head, but nowhere in the world around him until one day Portal, and then
I wound up here and heard Aretha for the first time.
Pylea then is an apt stand-in for an oppressive, homophobic society and a hell dimension for someone like Lorne. But Lorne was pulled from Pylea and found sanctuary in LA. He didn't come out to LA by choice, but by circumstance. His journey in this arc, then, is to fully embrace and claim his identity, casting off the culture that he never felt a belonging with. See what I did there?
I had to come back here to find out I didn't have to come back here. I don't belong here. I hate it here. You know where I belong? LA. You know why? Nobody belongs there.
And in Oswinian terms, Dorothy comes across a lion deep in the forest. Despite leading with a demonic temper, he is quickly revealed to be a big old softy. It seems that this particular lion might have some swagger, but lacks courage. But Lorne summons the courage to face Pylea, and by the end, Lorne returns to Earth along with the rest of Team Angel, actively choosing the world he previously found himself in by accident. Through another lens, as the Oracle, Lorne is also the team's yellow brick road, guiding the team back to their path through the medium that has allowed him to express his own authentic self, music. Music was the thing that made him feel different, like he didn't belong. For that reason, when Lorne uses it as a source of power, belting out "Stop in the Name of Love," it's It's kind of gorgeous, and what a perfect song. This is just the lightest of touch on these topics, for which a lot more remains to be said. I love Lorne deeply. He is a necessary ray of light in a show that explores shadow. But Angel the series is a cultural artifact of its time period, and today there is a conversation to be had about making Angel's only outwardly camp character so often a source of comic relief, as well as the only member of the team to never have a romantic relationship. These kinds of discussions are not about trying to undo the past, but learning from it to do better in the future. I understand the importance of that conversation, and I still love Angel the series, and I still love Lorne. Many things can be true at the same time, and as much as I am less equipped to bring anything of value to that conversation happening today, I just thought it would have been criminal not to acknowledge Lorne's identity arc here. If you're interested, we'll link to some further reading down in the description.
In the name of love.
Picking up where we left off, the motif for some reason shifts from Oz to Wonderland, as we see that Cordelia hasn't let being the ruler go to her head.
Off with their heads!
Wesley suggests Lorne get back in touch with family to act as guides through Pylea. Lorne Swath's mother is less than enthused to see him.
No longer do the dance of joy, Numfar.
For those who don't know, Numfar is played by Joss Whedon. You're welcome. Or, I'm sorry for ruining that for you, whichever applies. In the process of doing research, the team discovers the priests want Cordy to calm-shock a Gruselug. Also, the priests represent this dimension's LARPing chapter of Wolfram and Hart. The book is a cool reveal, and it reminds me of a fun Easter egg stuffed into Thor's nightmare from Age of Ultron. Angel is selected to crubbletize Winifred. He saves her instead. Lorne busts out the Supreme so that they can escape. Turns out the Gruselug is Handsome Slug. While defending Fred, Angel vamps out, and just as Pylea has the effect of distilling more of his human characteristics, the vamp version of him is closer to the pure demon. I'm not ordinarily one who harps on continuity errors, but Demon Angel ripping the guard's leg off and then it growing back in the wide shot is pretty funny. Fred baits Angel back to the cave where he shame transforms into Human Angel. Gunn and Wesley are captured by the other humans. Gru convinces Cordy she can do some good, and the episode ends with Silas deciding to punish her by beheading Lorne.
In kind of a hurry to get back to the Cordelia's not a princess dimension, aren't you?
Given what we now know about Charisma Carpenter's experience on Angel, it's difficult to ignore how the show frames her character in this arc, within the text as well as the larger meta-narrative of her treatment as an actress. That reality around the show entire, or as much of it has been talked about in public, exacerbates some of the already bizarre execution here, the show attempting to comment on misogyny while seemingly indulging it. I'll talk about the charisma stuff in more detail when we get to Season 4. For now, there is a link included in the video description if you're not caught up. But outside of that, Cordelia's arc in these 4 episodes feels emblematic of the Pylea storyline as a whole. A curious mix of interesting ideas and a lot of fun, because Cordelia...
Off with their heads!
Combined with confusing, unforced errors and the lack of any revelatory moments we haven't seen before. Belonging's cold open sets up the crux of Cordy's inner predicament, her desire to be a Hollywood princess and the assumption that the reason she is unable to fully pursue that dream is because of the visions.
I can't leave you guys while I'm still the proud owner of the mind-shattering, ever more debilitating visions.
The key word there being while, implying that if she had the opportunity to give up the vision, she would leave Team Angel. Team Wesley. So the Pylea arc is both about granting her that opportunity to give up the visions and to experience what being a princess is all about. But when Cordy is swept away in a tornado-like dimensional vortex, just like Dorothy, she winds up in a world that seems to grant her her wish, until she realizes Silas is no better than Seth, and her new costume is no more powerful than her old. Her costuming in this arc reads to me as an attempt to visually connect the ideas of Hollywood princess and Pylea princess. The design of her sequined princess outfit echoes classic pulp fantasy aesthetics, perhaps an intentional nod to Frank Frazetta's original illustrations for Edgar Rice Burroughs' A Princess of Mars. Dejah Thoris was a princess of a barbarian planet, as is Cordy of a barbarian Pylea. But where I start to get confused is in the fact that Belonging opens with an intense, heavy-handed critique of Hollywood misogyny. Seth, the director Cordy is working for, horribly objectifies her in an incredibly uncomfortable scene. And the parallels between the Earth and Pylea bikinis is later played as a joke when Cordy herself lampshades the absurdity of her commercial wardrobe before looking down at what she's wearing on Pylea.
Tiny, skimpy, exploitative... nothing like this.
Which means that both Seth's objectifying male gaze and the outfit itself Cordy is being forced to wear are the problem. And yet, after the horrible scene with Seth, the arc then proceeds to put Charisma Carpenter in a spangly bikini and high heels for 3 episodes. Cordy's comparative line plays as an acknowledgement of the issue, but the meta-awareness does nothing to negate the exploitative framing itself. Instead of interrogating the trope and subverting it, the show just recreates it. After her nauseating interaction with Seth, we also get a scene where the 3 male leads, all performatively horrified about Cordy's treatment, sexually fantasize about her in the revealing outfit. Angel masturbating his axe handle is admittedly funny, but the scene is no less meta-stupid for trying to comment on Hollywood misogyny while being a Hollywood show, also benefiting from it within the joke. This weird meta lack of self-awareness gets a second coat of paint when Cordy complains in Over the Rainbow.
I want you to find me a dimension where some demon doesn't want to impregnate me with its spawn. Is that just too much to ask?
It honestly shouldn't be, given that she's already endured 2 mystical pregnancies, and spoiler alert, we're just getting started, folks. This moment lands as unintentionally but painfully ironic. The joke is in the overuse of the trope, and yet we're about to lean into it? I do think the princess motif is a fun way of literalizing something Cordelia's character has been confronting since the show began. This isn't really about acting. It's about something she lost.
Cordy, you reign.
Power and control over her life. Cordelia was a queen back in Sunnydale. Following her father's financial woes and the move to LA, she's been attracted to a path that tantalizes with access to the power over her circumstances that she thinks she wants back. So the idea is reclaiming her crown still involves being under the control of someone else. In this case, Silas, the purple people-popping priest. It's an interesting setup. However, the execution feels purposefully redundant. Gruselug, who shall henceforth be known as Diet Angel, is an analog to Angel. There's a cut from full-on demon to Diet Angel in order to set this up.
An animal. A beast. To my people, I was nothing more than this.
Diet Angel is part cow, part one of the other Pylean demons, probably the Purple Priest People Poppers. At one point, he just tried to end his life, as did Angel, both with his kamikaze attack on Wolfram and Hart this season.
I foolishly entered every contest of skill and daring that I could in an attempt to snuff out my pathetic life. Even at this, I failed.
And his get up just to get down with Darla.
I sought to end my suffering.
As Angel did in Season 1, Diet Angel helps Cordy understand that her princesshood, i.e. power, doesn't need to be given to her by someone else.
You declare it with your bearing.
Her power is something she owns, something she claims. You know.
I'm a bitch.
When Cordy finds out the intention of the impending shuckery is for the visions to pass to Gru, we get a strangely unearned completion to the, well, I have the visions line from the cold open of the arc.
You can't take my visions. I need them. I use them to help my friends fight evil back home.
The Pylea arc ostensibly charts her journey toward embracing the visions as part of her identity, but it doesn't feel like there's much of a journey here. Silas the LARPing Wolfram and Hart priest is just a mustache-twirling, purple people-popping butthole. Once he's gone, being a princess in Pylea might not have been that bad. Plus, she'd have been better equipped to help with the rebuilding than Gru would have on his own. I've said in several videos that one aspect of adulthood is sometimes having to learn the same lesson repeatedly, and that aspect to Angel the Show feels authentic in its theme work. But this re-exploration doesn't turn the prism or feel like it's charting any new angles on Cordy's journey. The Pylea arc essentially reintroduces the same struggle with a new setting and aesthetic, just without the resonant emotional core. More disturbingly, the show's treatment of Cordy in this arc foreshadows her ultimate trajectory in later seasons, where she will be stripped of her agency in far more egregious ways. Ultimately, the Pylea arc fails to deliver a meaningful evolution for Cordelia. It pretends to challenge tropes while reinforcing them, acknowledges problems without addressing them, and then repackages the previous 2 seasons' themes without adding anything new. The story suggests that Cordy is empowered, but looking closely at the execution, it's clear that she's still being played.
No place like
Willow?
And back to Oz motif with There's No Place Like Plrtz, Glrb, and Cordy sobbing over a recently beheaded Lorne. Turns out he can do just fine without a body. This is a pretty cool effect, actually, as they transition between dummy head Lorne and projection Andy Hallett. Silas has the ability to blow up the head of every collared cow or human in Pylea. Wesley and Gunn are let go by their human captors, and Gunn suggests they aid them in a rebellion. This might have been an attempt to tie back into his dropped story with the Lost Boys that began this arc, and hint at what could have been in Season 3. Either way, they decide to help their captors mount a rebellion. Angel and Fred join up. In continuing to play the hits from this season, Angel apologizes to Gunn.
I'm sorry, Shame for what I did to you.
Landok brings the team Angel's head, and I love both this shot of the team and of Lorne. The circular dissolve into the moon is just chef's kiss. At Wes's behest, Angel challenges the Gru. Silas motivates Gru by suggesting Angel is going to rape the princess, which feels unnecessary and tiresome. Cordy beheads Silas. Angel gets a handle on Vamp himself. Everyone says goodbye, including in a scene that makes me cringe hard enough to break bones, and the team goes through the portal. Feels good.
We gotta figure out how we can all get to the portal without...
I'm not going.
And that's everybody, right? That's all the characters and how they fit into the structure, right? We didn't leave anyone out, did we? Did we? Oh no. The only major character in this arc without a clear map to a Wizard of Oz structure is Gunn, and that seems like a tragic oversight. Much of Gunn's character arc for these episodes seems to occur off-screen. As a result, his Pylea story feels patched in and slightly out of phase with everything else. Gunn's story starts off strong in Belonging, with his growing role at Champion Incorporated pulling him away from his former community as leader of the Lost Boys. In that way, his story here had potential to be a strong mirror for Lorne's, as both characters wrestled with their own senses of where they belong. Both characters started out in other worlds. Both of them were pulled by the undeniable tow of Team Angel's mission, and both of them are presented with the opportunity to choose where they land. The reality is, though, that Gunn already made his choice. When Angel fired the team, Gunn could have returned to his place with the Lost Boys, but he didn't. This choice has already been resolved, so to revisit it here feels a little too late. What Gunn is grappling with in Belonging isn't about where he belongs, but simply the guilt he feels while standing in the long shadow of a choice long since made. Even so, and this is one of the persistent annoying quirks of this arc for all the characters, we present Gunn as though the decision hasn't been made, as though he is still in the grappling portion of the program. He's not. In the end, if the Lost Boys story were completely removed from this arc, no one would notice, and the second Gunn hops in the car to remake a decision long since made, it's business as usual, leaving Rondell, their friend's death, and the ghost of the Lost Boys community behind without real consequence. So, fine. Gunn made his choice, we're off to see the Gruselug, and Gunn has resolved his conflict. Right? Well, once Gunn and Wesley are captured by the Rebel Alliance, Gunn is the one who convinces Wesley to help them by saying he can't stand to abandon the rebels, as he's been doing too much of that lately. Except he didn't have to. He was there with the Lost Boy rebels. He could have stayed and he didn't. So now the arc seems to be saying that Gunn hasn't resolved his inner conflict over a choice that he has made with clarity twice. Which is fine, except that it kind of unhits the dramatic power chord of him jumping in the back of the Angelmobile from the previous episode. A pivot which Gunn made off-screen with minimal explanation, leading us to believe that wasn't that big a deal. Well, okay, so Gunn and Wesley decide to aid the rebels, largely because Gunn has residual guilt that we're surely going to address later, since now we're clear that it matters. Since Lorne and Gunn seem to be doing the story version of Islands in the Stream on karaoke night, we can anticipate a dramatic, quiet, character-driven, harmonic duet, so we can land both Lorne and Gunn's arcs and finally complete their senses of belonging, right? Right? Oh, for Hecate's sake. Instead, after being forced to carry the awkward dialogue about freaking slavery, Gunn ends the arc in a chipper mood, ready to go home and once again forget about the dead friends he's left behind, I guess. Look, just having J. August Richards delivering your lines is a win. Gunn can say and do almost anything, and we'll buy it because Richards is a talent and a pro.
Sounds dirty if you ask me.
But he deserved better. Gunn deserved better. And, well, we'll just leave it there for now. Trust me, there will be more on all of this as we lean into Season 3. Look, making television is complicated. It's spinning plates all over the place, and when two shows are interconnected in the way that Buffy and Angel are, that complexity becomes exponential. In my video for Weight of the World, I mentioned that there were similarities between that episode and the third episode in the Pylea saga, Through the Looking Glass, and it's possible that the missteps in Gunn's character arc could be a result of some behind-the-scenes plates that may have crashed down at the last minute. Here's the theory. In the final arcs for both shows, we got portals popping up all over the place. There's Glory in Sunnydale ripping apart the fabric of reality in her attempt to get back home, and Team Angel in desperate need of an opening back to the no place that is home for them. What if all this simultaneous portal hopping were an attempt to put those hands together? Picture it. Instead of what we got, Dawn gets successfully bled much earlier, possibly even at the end of Weight of the World. The portal opens and begins ripping through dimensions, cut to black as the episode ends on that cliffhanger. Meanwhile, back in Pylea, Team Angel storms the castle and rescues Cordy. Hooray! But now, sans the magic book portal hopping, which was left behind for reasons, they are stranded on Gruselug's island with no way home. Always the sharpest tack in the box, Gunn points to the sky and says maybe that could help, and we see Glory's portal conveniently beckoning them into more adventure. The Scoobies begin their assault on Glory's tower, and just as things seem bleak, one of those bolts of dimension energy hits the ground near Buffy and outroars the Angelmobile to the rescue. Hot, right? Back in 2001, there were rumors circulating of an epic crossover episode with a working title of Centenary. Several other plot rumors were bouncing around at the time, including Willow turning dark and joining Team Glory, Xander being revealed to be Glory's human half instead of Ben, and an epic final battle featuring the Scoobies, Team Angel, and lots of other minor characters from over the years. None of this has ever been definitively confirmed, but if this was a plan that got studio blocked at the last minute for logistical reasons, it could explain why both Through the Looking Glass and Weight of the World feel a little plot light. Not much happens in either episodes as the characters are gently nudged into position for their finales. If you were a writer with sudden minutes to fill on a tight deadline as the planned epic crossover went sideways, you might put Buffy into a coma and resurrect an awkward and ultimately meaningless storyline for Gunn. Maybe that's what happened. Probably it's not, but it's an interesting theory at least.
So what's he doing here?
He had an epiphany.
Ah.
Angel split seasons are so weird. The theory I've put forward in previous videos is given Angel was always searching for an audience, it made a certain kind of sense to structure things in such a way that created a dramatic high to air during Sweeps Week, a now antiquated concept related to American Nielsen ratings from the over-the-air cable era of television. They then wrap up the main arc within an episode or two, follow with a breather, and then commence a mini-arc. What I would consider the actual Season 2 finale here is Reprise and Epiphany. In Season 3, it's somewhere around Forgiving, Season 4, it's Inside Out, and Season 5 is weird in its own right as cancellation came along unexpectedly. But even that has a thorny mini-arc to try and bring things together. There's a lot of fun to be had here. Obviously, the humor is some of the best in the series.
I think we're winning!
David getting to have fun with Angel and let his natural charisma loose is always a joy.
No, I mean, why didn't anybody tell me about this?
I actually really enjoy how experimental Angel the series is willing to be compared to Buffy. And revisiting the beats from this season can be fun, as this is a spectacular season of the show. There's not a lot that feels new other than Lorne's arc, but I love that that's here, and I wish the show had given us a few more Lorne-centric arcs to explore. But that's kind of about it. Flavor-wise, Pylea reminds me of a phenomena that doesn't really exist anymore. The made-for-TV movie. American broadcast networks like NBC, ABC, and CBS used to invest in making their own films, and sometimes this was an excuse to reunite casts of popular shows that had been off the air at that point for a number of years. Things like A Very Brady Christmas, Return to Mayberry, or Rescue from Gilligan's Island. Well-intentioned projects full of fan service that maybe didn't have the same flavor of the original shows, as all of the sets were gone and the movie was a departure from what the team made really well week in and week out. Sidebar, I feel similarly about a number of revival or continuation seasons we've gotten from things like Arrested Development, Parks and Recreation, or The X-Files. But to give you a simple example, the Hyperion is one of my favorite television locations ever made, a bespoke, one-of-a-kind set that is deeply intertwined with the show's intended aesthetic, and the lore of the series, and the history of its title character. Pylea uses a standing set at a movie ranch that was also used for the Boxer Rebellion from Darla earlier in the season, among among multiple other productions. Great location for a flashback, a little samey when overused. This arc is also a weird, confusing grab bag of multiple ideas. Lorne sets up the Wizard of Oz motif early.
Mr. Elton John hits the first few keys of Yellow Brick Road. I defy you not to feel like the only other person in the room.
2 of the episode titles are named for it. The character arcs map onto it, and then there is an Alice of Wonderland swap in the middle of it.
Off with their heads!
You've got the heavy embrace of Angel's mythological subversion that doesn't quite end up subverted. The strange, unforced errors we've already mentioned. It all feels maybe an episode too long, and yet the arcs feel like they skip a beat, or in Gunn's case, maybe the entire concerto. So many ingredients, so half-baked. But probably the main reason I personally check out is nearly any emotional core here is missing. The first 2 scenes in Belonging, minus the vomiting, are the episode I wanted to watch. Wesley's call with his father is one of the only emotionally captivating scenes in the arc.
He sends his greetings to everyone in Tinseltown.
The dramatic climax and most satisfying conclusion to the season was in Reprise and Epiphany. The Pylea arc doesn't feel like it has anything new to say about those things, even if there is some setup for next season. I like a breather episode as much as the next person, but at some point it turns into a masturbatory pant. What's weird is, yes, this all feels like a coda, but Restless was 1 damn episode, not 4. And by having this as a finale, tying off all the same things that were tied off way better by 1 scene between Kate and Angel in the courtyard, it just all feels so redundant. Except for Lorne, of course.
It's all I need from you.
It's not enough.
It is.
In the video for Reprise, I talked about how one of the operating principles for Mutant Enemy with Angel was to regularly set up familiar mythic structures, only to then subvert them. By way of Buffy the series, Angel is a character deeply tied to the tropes of destiny. In this case, the star-crossed lover. Buffy and Angel were Romeo and Juliet, Montague and Capulet.
A vampire in love with a slayer. It's rather poetic in a maudlin sort of way.
But we all know Romeo and Juliet's destiny. Buffy claimed her identity back from destiny by having Juliet stab Romeo through the chest. A truly stellar way of saying something interesting about the complexities of growing up. Joseph Campbell defined the monomyth in 1949, a universal pattern found in myths, legends, and storytelling across the world. Meeting the mentor, crossing the threshold, trials and ordeals, the abyss, the return, or victory.
The vampire, with a soul, once he fulfills his destiny, will, shan't you, become human. It's his reward.
If Buffy was a show about using the lens of horror to examine adolescence, one way to look at Angel might be using the lens of the monomyth to examine adulthood. Buffy, the show, is a subversion of classic horror tropes, but she is still very much a paragon Peter Parker mythic hero character herself. Angel, the series, is an ongoing subversion of classic hero tropes, mainly through its rejection of Campbell's final stage. 2 consistent roadblocks prevent Angel from completing his quests and fulfilling on the tidy conclusion of the monomyth. Time, often represented by Angel's immortality, and the complexity of modern life itself.
We have no intention of doing anything so prosaic as winning.
The final episode of Season 1 introduced Angel's heroic reward in the Shanshu, and this season has been a regular rug-pulling exploration of familiar fantasy tropes that denied Angel the hero's reward over and over again. The trial to save Darla that failed. Or did it? The quest to get the ring, to get the thing, to the glove, and... Wait, what was it again?
Okay, now you're making this up.
The net effect of denying the reward is that the show refocuses on what exactly is worth fighting for. Darla was worth fighting for, and even though Angel didn't win, by her rejecting his offer to turn her, in the end we see that his actions still have meaning. He helped Darla find her own redemption. And if the idea here is redemption, then there is no place for destiny, because redemption isn't something that can be written in the stars. It is earned through the actions that Angel takes every day. You know, to put it another way.
If there's no great glorious end to all this, if nothing we do matters, and all that matters is what we do.
And that is the mission statement of the entire show. One it is true to down to its final shot. We never win, not completely, and that's not why we fight. The Pylea arc expands Angel's mythological influences to their fullest potential, with actual horses, castles, barbarians, honor, rituals, and traditions. With Angel, it is always worth paying attention to when the show leans into any kind of stereotypically epic quest. Angel gets to hang in the light. Cordy gets to reign again. and has a chance to be free of her visions, the heroes are given their rewards.
Nice to be seen as a hero without all the pesky little moral ambiguities you get back home, isn't it? Yeah.
Before, in true Angel fashion, the show turns them all on their heads. Without the gray, Angel loses the balance within himself. And I love the way the show uses its tiny Buffy crossover here to remain true to that ongoing premise, as even the very last second of the final Pylea episode refuses to let Angel cross a finish line.
There's no place like...
It's Buffy.